Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Underdog with Robert Ris. Happy to have you back again. Robert, we are talking about underdogs normally, right?
That's the topic, right? The name of the show. So
Yeah.
today's
Now I'm
game,
curious.
I'm not sure who is the underdog actually, but we have a big game and a big story behind it. So it's Fabiano Caruana playing with the white pieces against Alireza Firouzja. And now you're thinking these guys are pretty good.
They
Who's going
are.
to be the underdog?
Yeah.
Well, I feel that at top level chess, also these guys, they have like a preference to play a certain player or not. And I think playing Fabiano Caruana with the black pieces is never going to be an easy task. And I think basically anyone who's playing against Fabi with the black pieces is the underdog, right? I mean, I think even Magnus, even no, seriously, look at the World Championship match Fabiano Caruana against Magnus Carlsen. Magnus had many bad positions. He was lucky to escape with all these draws. Fabi is the best prepared player in the world. I think so, at least. And I think it's never easy to play him.
Hmm.
And Alireza Firouzja is one of those guys who is not afraid of anyone with either color. He's just trying to play for a win. But it also has some downsides, of course. So he had a very tough year in 2023,
True.
lost a lot of rating points, but now he's working his way back into the top 5 of the world, trying to qualify again for the candidates and become
Hmm.
a challenger. But I think it's very interesting when somebody like Fabi is the clear favorite whenever he's playing with white. But he's playing against someone who doesn't respect him that much. I mean, they respect each other, but I mean, you're not afraid. You just try to beat him. And
Yes.
I think this game, which was played in round 1 of the Singfield Cup, it's a very interesting clash with a lot of interesting moments. So that's what I wanted to discuss with you.
I
In
like this take and I like the approach, and I think you have some good points. And if you disagree at home, that's fine. We're okay with that. You can disagree. It's okay. But I think yeah, it's a good underdog story. Also, I mean, if there's a game between Caruana and Firouzja, you can also expect there is going to be some very interesting chess games. So I'm happy that you're analyzing it, Robert. What did Fabiano play in his first move?
Yeah, so here we go. What's important to know, it's the classical event, so
Yeah.
not the Rapid and Blitz. Time control, it's sort of new. It's 120 minutes for the entire game plus 30 seconds increment. So no additional time on move 40.
I
Keep that
like
in
that.
mind.
Yeah.
I like it too. I like it too. Let's see how it works out in this game.
So shall we switch to Ali Reza's?
I'm not sure
All
it's
right,
really
we leave
needed.
it
Let's
like
let
that.
let's look at from the white side, because a lot of things are happening in this game.
Oh,
So
okay.
you just look at from the white side. And as always, Fabi comes very well prepared. So we have the Italian opening. I just quickly go through it
Sure.
because it's pretty standard for both of them. Fabi has a lot of experience playing it with the white
Oh
pieces.
yeah.
Alireza also played it with many times with black. So very likely they even anticipated this particular line where white is aiming for queenside expansion early on. It's probably what they expected. Um, so queenside is fixed. The black knight is coming around to g6. So this is a thematical maneuver. And white is the first one to try to occupy the center here with the move d4.
Okay.
Interesting idea. So that if you take back with a c pawn, white is getting a nice center. But interestingly, earlier, not earlier this year, in 2023, there are some games of Fabi with the white pieces against Giri, for instance. In that game, people played h6. Firouzja goes for bishop g4. I think also very principled move, pinning the knight. Therefore, white moves the queen out of the pin. Queen c2 over protecting the pawn on e4. Queen d7, rook e1, rook e8, all very, very standard. And now h3, questioning the bishop. Bishop takes, knight takes, and now pawn takes d4. This is the moment where black releases the tension as he feels that his position, his pieces are well placed for it. Because, for instance, if you do take back here, black is going to play the move d5. And, well, you're attacking the bishop. If you do take, you can trade off one pair of rooks on the e file. And then you take back with a knight. You get very nice, comfortable position. So that's not what white is playing for. But instead, look at the next move. It's really deep piece of home preparation, as here Fabi doesn't take back, but goes for bishop b2. It's a real pawn sacrifice, which is accepted. Black took on c3, bishop takes, and you're a pawn down. But look at these bishops. I mean, I had worse bishops in my life. These guys, they are pretty unpleasant to face. For instance, now black got to think about what the consequences will be of bishop takes knight, ruining the pawn structure. Sometimes white has ideas to go, let's say, rook a1, prepare the move e5, exploiting the misplacement of the queen on the d file. So here, the next move by black is very human. He goes here for knight e5, Firouzja. So the knights are coming off the board. Rook 81 with tempo, hitting the queen. And the queen goes to e7. So you're still a pawn down, but you're still also in book, because the next move was still blitzed out by Fabi. He goes rook d3. And at this point, he is up 1 hour on the clock. And I think this is not very pleasant to face, because what is the idea of this rook move? Well, it's coming to the king side, right? It's going to f3, maybe to g3. A lot of ideas in combination with the pressure exerted by the bishops. It's not so easy for black at all.
Super nice. I wonder if this is the point where you go make this move, rook d3, and then you go like, that looks good. That's all I need to know for the prep if it goes this way. Or do you even go further?
I think he must have analyzed a bit further.
Wow.
And probably he doesn't recall all the details, but he is familiar with some typical attacking ideas. Well, anyway, after his opponent's next move, rook e8, this is the first moment in the game where he started to think, spend about 25 minutes or so on his next move. So that's a sign that he was not familiar with this exact move. But look at this. Rook f3 anyway. Rook d7. So black is about to double rooks on the d file probably. And how is white going to increase the pressure? Now there are various ideas, and one idea could be to bring up the g pawn, so that you're about to go g4, g5 to force the knight to go to an inferior square. It's one interesting idea. The other move, which is also very interesting, it's the move rook f5.
And how funny! I thought about this. Yeah,
it's not a move you see every day. I mean, just a few moves ago, this rook was still on a1. Yeah. But usually you get a knight on f5, not a rook on f5. But okay, clear idea is to take the pawn on e5. So black defends here with bishop to d4, offering the exchange of pieces. White is not interested, keeps the bishop on the board. And now black's position doesn't contain that many weaknesses, right? Black is pretty solid, everything is well defended, but okay, bishop g5 is probably coming very soon. And
indeed,
how is black going to activate his rooks, his major pieces in general? So black played here the move c6 with the idea of opening the c file. Maybe the rook can come there and indirectly hit the queen there. White takes on c6, pawn takes back, and now the bishop comes into to g5. So also a big moment here, as black got to decide how to deal with the pressure. Like, you can still defend with rook d6, but it's generally not what you would like to do with your pieces. Yeah, so you would prefer to try to become active at some point. So instead of defending and holding the king side, Firouzja comes up with a very interesting and even more ambitious solution, as he goes for the move rook b8, allowing white to take on f6, g takes f6, and now, okay, it's clear that the black king side is quite vulnerable, but all the important attacking pieces are still on the board. Major pieces, opposite colored bishops. And as you can see, the pawn on c6, it's the extra pawn, but it's not really threatening at this point. So how is white going to proceed? Well, queen c1 is played. Very interesting idea. As the queen is on its way to h6. And, well, black played here this move, rook to b4.
What?
Probably believing that the queen is now stuck defending the bishop on c4. But big moment in the game as Fabi moved the bishop back to f1, so that he's preparing to get a queen into the attack. However, one fascinating line I want to show you is to try to make this move queen h6 work anyway.
There, that's it. I thought about it too, because how to defend h7, right?
Well, that's a big point. Let's see. If you take the bishop, your idea, I can read your mind, Arne, is to go rook h5 and trying to get in this checkmate.
That's correct.
However, the best defense here is to move the queen away so that if you ever take on h7, the king can walk to the center. And apparently, there is no mating idea here. So black survives. However, instead of rook h5, the key move is this one. It's dropping back with the rook to f3. I mean, whenever you're on the attack, I think it's very difficult to keep thinking about these backward moves. But the threat is to give a check and mate on g7. Now, the only defense is to prevent that check on g3 by offering the exchange of rooks so that the rook is controlling the g3 square. But the line continues with this interference idea, rook e to e3. This is pretty cool, right? So
it is. And you won't believe it. I thought of this, but I thought like, okay, wait, but if we, yeah, it's really working.
The line even continues. Like you can take on e3.
Yeah, no, but
takes.
Yeah.
And now you go into the corner with your king apparently. And here, let's say if you go rook g3, it looks like it's mate. But black can still defend with bishop takes e3, deflecting either the rook or the queen. And then you have time to reorganize your defense, for instance, with rook d8, rook g8. So super complex line. I think white, instead of rook g3, can just capture the bishop. And still the threat of rook g3 is there. Probably white is still the one who is pressing here. But okay, probably black can hold on, but that's the way you need to think about trying to fight for the initiative, to ignore your opponent's threats and try to get in your own ideas.
And he had like some time left, as you said, so it's interesting that because it's just a simple thought, right? You can think about those moves. They're quite natural. Queen h6, can that work? And then you can calculate a little.
You can calculate what I believe is that he probably forgot about his rook f3 idea, but because it's this backward move, and especially when sacrificing, you're thinking in the direction of the king. You're not thinking about going forward.
That's true.
I'm not sure. Maybe there's something else he missed along the way, or he just believed that by keeping the bishop on the board,
he's better.
He gets better practical chances.
Can also be,
Now rook d6 played. The queen comes in. And black played queen f8, offering the exchange of queens. When queens are coming off the board, things are looking much easier for black.
Oh yeah.
So white keeps queens on the board. Queen h5, maybe queen h4 is also a possibility. Now queen to g7. And one important detail here is that the same sort of maneuver we looked at before with rook f3, rook g3, it's not really going to work because black can play queen g5, offering the exchange of queens. As rook g3 is met by queen takes. Also, black is having some counterplay here, thanks to the bishop on d4. So not that simple to play for an attack. White played first king h2, queen g6, offering an exchange of queens again. Queen comes to f3. Black goes for c5. So imagine the pawn is coming further. Things are looking pretty bad. So therefore, rook goes to c1. And well, here you're about to put your bishop back on c4. Now, still a lot of ideas. And what you should not underestimate is the time situation on the clock. Because here, Fabi, I'm not sure, probably had around 15 minutes left, but Alireza was down to about 3 minutes at this point. And for the rest of the game, yeah, so you're practically relying on increment for the rest of
Well,
the game.
if one person or one player can do this, or maybe two, I would say it's Alireza Firouzja and Hikaru Nakamura. Maybe even Carlsen, of course. Yeah.
You know, they can play extremely well, but you're playing against also pretty strong
Yes.
players, and you're under
Yes.
pressure for a long period of time.
So true.
So things are not that simple. Anyway, this is also an interesting moment, as you can take a pawn, but you temporarily give up your coordination with that move. Things are far from simple. Let's say, for instance, if you go for this line, white is trying to get in with a rook. If you block again, you're 2 pawns up, but white will find ways to sneak in with his queen and bishop via the light squares. And f7 is a target, maybe rook f3, rook g3. It's not that simple. White also has ideas of picking up the pawn on a5 and later the pawn on b4.
I see.
So
Can I
in
ask
any
you a
case,
quick
yes.
question? What about the idea of going to h5 with the rook, then to h4, and then to g4? Is it taking too long?
It's a bit slower compared to the idea with rook f3, g3.
I see.
It takes an extra move.
Okay, okay.
By the way, with the idea getting the rook back to f3, apart from going to g3, you may consider switching sides by going to the queen side as well. So yeah, it's hard to say. It's a very complex position. Like it's a sort of stalemate situation in a middle game. Like neither side is really able to make progress. So we get very soon an interesting maneuvering phase in the game.
Okay.
Black played rook b2, attacking the pawn on f2. And here, interesting moment, as probably the best move is to go with the queen to d3. But that was not played by Fabi. He went for the move queen d1. In both cases, you're pinning the bishop on d4. So it's not really an option to move the bishop to take on f2, as it hangs the rook on d6. But what you try to do is get a rook from f5 to f3 so that you can go to g3. Now, with the queen on d3, the pawn on e4 is defended. So let's say if you play a move like king g7 here as black, it's a pretty good move. This idea with rook f3 doesn't work, as it hangs the pawn on e4. But okay, that was not played. Instead, black went for the move rook d2 b6. I guess intention is to take on f2 at some point. Bishop e2 played, cutting off the second rank. Queen h6. Black is down to 2 minutes at this point.
How many moves to go?
Well, there's no additional time.
Yes.
40.
Oh, yes.
That is the trick. I mean,
That's
that's
the
why
joke.
the time control is actually
Yeah.
quite fascinating.
Thanks for reminding me. Yeah.
Yeah. So bishop b5 played. Black played here king f8 with the idea probably to put the king on e7. White goes for rook c2, trying to trade off the best piece of black. If that rook is coming off the board, it will be easier for the queen to try to come into black's position. So black keeps the rook on the board. Queen d3, rook goes back to d6, bishop to c4, king to e7. No threats by both sides, just trying to improve the position. Queen g3, guess the idea is to come into g8 and hit the pawn on f7, rook d8, preventing that entry of the queen. Queen f3, queen g6, queen e2, rook b8, bishop b5. Maybe this is not the most spectacular phase of the game, but imagine you're both down to 2 minutes or so. You also don't want to give away anything.
Sure.
Queen f3, rook d6, g3. I like this plan by Fabi, as he's placing a pawn on g3 with the idea to put a king on g2. So all white's pieces are placed on the light square, which means that they will never get attacked by this bishop. Rook b6, h4. Okay, you see that white is slowly improving the position. Queen e2, rook b6, king h3, queen c8, pinning the rook on f5. So king g2, and we do get a repetition, but feeling like you have the upper hand at this point, maybe on the board, but for sure on the clock. Here, instead of king g2, white continues with queen g4, and that sets a huge threat of taking the pawn on e5. Discovered check as you're about to win the queen. Rook b8, defending the queen, bishop c4. So here the bishop is targeting the pawn on f7. So queen g7 is a threat. Queen g8, queen goes back to e2. And you can see that white is even looking at possibilities trying to infiltrate via the other side. Rook b6, bishop d5, rook d6, everything well protected. Rook c4, queen c8. You got to watch out as white as well, as rook takes d5. Deflecting the pawn from e4 means that the rook on f5 can be hanging soon. Queen g4, renewing the threat. So both sides are trying to create some simple threats. Queen d7. But now things are really happening on the board. Queen g7, threatening to take here. Now, what to do here as black? Black can consider taking the bishop, with the point that if you do take back, then, as I said, this rook is hanging. But black didn't play this move, probably because after queen takes f6, it feels like this is not what you want. After going away with the king, at least white can force the repetition of moves with queen h8, and instead you may thinking about taking off the rook and then take on d5. But how to evaluate this position? This queen on d5
and the pawn
is a fantastic. Yeah, it's defending the pawn on f7. The b pawn is potentially dangerous. There's also a check on h1, and white doesn't have a mating threat. So black didn't want to go for that, and instead decided here to run with the king to d8, and believing that the king is better off at the other side of the board. Well, rook takes d5 idea is it's still kind of annoying. So you may think about moving the king away. However, this is a key moment in the game.
Okay.
As white has a very difficult move. You should probably first take the rook on b4. I guess this is not what you want to do because it feels like you're improving black's position. But the trick is that you can move the king away out of the diagonal. And this is a very difficult move because now, okay, white has a lot of threats, probably to take on f7, to take on f6. And if you, for instance, take on d5, so that you cannot take here because the rook is hanging, well, there is rook takes f6. You're a piece down, but after moving the rook away, you take with the rook on f7, and next will be rook f8, and the black king is caught in some sort of a mating net, or black will be forced to give up the queen. So I think that is a very difficult line, and very understandable that white just moves the bishop away by capturing a pawn, but it does give black time to consolidate. The king goes to the other side, queen g8, so still maintaining a grip on the c4 square. Bishop takes f2. Rook cannot take because of the pin. And well, here again, it's super sharp. Now Fabi goes for queen a8. Feels like the white queen finally has succeeded in finding an entry with a lot of checks. The pawn on a5 is even potentially hanging. Queen takes f7. And now you cannot win the queen with a skewer, because if you go queen a7, the rook comes back to b7, and black is up a piece. Instead, white first captured the rook. Look at this. Rook takes b4. Now c takes b4. Very important, as the bishop covers the a7 square.
Yes.
But rook takes f2. It's game on. It's a position where white is a pawn down, but it looks like he does have some sort of initiative. But it's black's turn. So black first brings the queen to d7 with check. And where do you go with the king? I think the move played by Fabi is very logical. He goes back to h2.
Yeah.
But there is a reason you should go with your king to g2. And that is actually shown in the line we get to see in the game.
Okay.
After king h2, king b6 played, queen b8. So you give a check, king a6, queen a8, queen a7. Now black is trying to play for a win, but here you see that there's no convenient way getting out of with the queen out of the corner, because the rook on f2 is hanging. So I wish, if let's say if the king had been on g2, I wish I could go for queen f8 with a counter against the rook, against the pawn, and the game goes on. But therefore you got to give another check, but it gives black the chance to consolidate. Queen b7, queen c4, king a7. If you give a check on c5, it's queen b6, everything is blocked. So that's not a problem. Rook c2 played, but now black once again consolidates. Nice battery of queen and rook. There are always ideas, for instance, to force the exchange of rooks. Queen c5, king a6, and okay, it's still not easy. Imagine you're still down to 30 seconds increment only. And the game is not over yet. Look at this. Queen f2 feels like the queen is going into the wrong direction. And now black finally is able to use the extra pawn on the queen side. Hitting the rook, rook b2, queen takes a4, pawn number 2, queen f3, hitting the pawn on b3, rook b6, keeping everything defended, queen d3, king a7, queen d5, queen a3, hitting the rook, queen d2, defending, queen b4. Now it looks like it's hopeless, right? You're 2 pawns down, queen d8, a4, the pawns are running, rook d2, but now everything is winning for black. You can take on e4, and then everything is still pretty well defended.
So you could technically even take on d2. Or is it too many checks?
Well, that's probably too many checks. I would not consider that. Like, you're 2 pawns up. The main goal should be to prevent any future checks. If you take on e4 and allow rook d7, you can go with your king to a6. And thanks to the centralization of the queen, all these important checks are covered.
I see.
Instead, b2 was played, and it's very tempting. Like, you're about to get a new queen, but after rook d7, what you're going to do? If you play king a6, it's a terrible blunder. Then all of a sudden, white is going to win this because of a bunch of checks, and the king is caught in the middle of the king c3, rook c7, and it's checkmate.
Oh no!
That is not possible. Instead, rook b7 was played. Feels like everything is under control, and on the next move, black promotes the pawn, but here, the key move for white, and maybe you can find it, Arne, and also for the viewers, this is a nice little task here, trying to find the way to save the game here as white.
Oh, so there is an option to save the game here.
To save the game, think about your defending tools here. Normally you're just losing when such a pawn is coming, but you need to try to generate an attack against the black king here.
I can only see one little thing, so for you at home, stop the video if you want to think for yourselves for a bit, but what about rook d5?
Excellent idea, rook d5, that's the way to go, because if you promote, then it's rook a5, the king can't go anywhere, you got to give up the queen, but then it's a repetition between the e5 and the d8 square.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's gonna draw the game. Instead, rook takes b7 was played. But then after king takes, queen d7, the black king is going to walk out of the checks. Queen d5, you can block with the queen. Queen b7, queen b6, queen d5, and now the queen has switched positions. That means that the king can come to b4. Here the checks are over, and very soon one of the 2 pawns is going to become a new queen. So that's the moment Fabi resigned. But absolutely remarkable win with the black pieces, and it turned out to be a very important one because Alireza managed to win the Sinkfield Cup, win $100,000, and he was just ahead of Fabiano in the end. So the first round encounter of this event proved to be decisive.
Yeah.
And a very, very impressive victory, keeping in mind that almost half of the game he was playing on 1 minute plus increment only. So
She
very
seems to
very
enjoy
remarkable.
that time format a
Yeah,
lot,
yeah,
where he
yeah,
has little
yeah.
time.
You have these kind of players who will always look
Yes.
for this kind of adventures in time trouble.
And then the question is, of course, before the Sinkefield event, who would have thought that Alireza would actually make it? I know he was, I think he had one or two tournaments a little bit before earlier, which were quite good,
Yeah,
but he was
it,
still not the favorite for sure.
exactly. I mean, he's very unstable. He's capable of beating anyone,
Yeah.
but also taking a lot of risks. And for instance, in his two outings at the candidates in 2022 and this year, I think he was struggling a lot. So when he feels pressure, he's vulnerable. But when he's able to play free without caring about the result, you see, you saw what can happen. He's playing masterpieces. Very nice
Absolutely.
chess.
Ah, well, yeah, what a great game. Thank you for the analysis. For you at home, please check out this analysis too. You can always download it. It's on the Chess-Based News site. The link is below the video, of course. Put it in your Underdog folder. Yeah, this was a special Underdog episode, but nonetheless, I think you made some good points that it was an underdog after all. And yeah, I cannot wait to see you next month again for the next Underdog. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Robert, for the analysis. Bye
See you next
bye.
time.